Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am the host of this stupid channel. Brandon, my favorite position to watch has always been tight end Perna. And today I'm giving you the realest tight end fantasy advice on earth. An elite tight end in fantasy football can make all the difference in the world, but there are usually only a couple true stalwart tight ends every season, which is a shame. Dante Stallworth never played tight end, so he could be the only stalwart for the NFL. The fantasy elite tight ends far exceed the 40 to 60 catch number that most good tight ends on decent teams haul in. Who are the elite tight ends in 2019? Who will drop? Who will fall? Are there any sleepers? All questions I will answer with hollow confidence today. It's good sports. The regular season is nearly here, and you need to subscribe to this YouTube channel for the shadiest NFL coverage on YouTube. Also, this episode is sponsored by Vincero Watches. Can you see it? And I'm excited to announce that if you use my link in the description, you will get access to Vincero's massive 5th anniversary sale. You already know Vincero creates exceptionally crafted timepieces at a fair price, and between now and August 18th, you can take advantage of their biggest sale of the year, which includes everything on their website: men's watches, women's watches, sunglasses, and even leather wallets. This is my new Vincero watch from the Rogue collection, and if you want one like me, you need to check out Vincero.com right now because their watches are selling out with this huge sale. And last year when I started partnering with Vincero, they had over 12,000 5-star reviews on their website, and now they have over 16,000, so you can rest assured people are increasingly happy with these watches. Again, the discount link is in the description, so use it now. Back to the fantasy world. Running back is the safest position to take a rookie and get good production in fantasy football. Wide receivers rarely live up to expectations during their rookie season, and even beasts like Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson took a season to start putting up respectable fantasy numbers. Good rookie quarterbacks are a long shot, and unless your name is Gronk or Ditka, a rookie tight end is always a bust in fantasy. My advice, do not draft a rookie tight end. That means you Broncos fans with your Noah Fant boners right now. Historically speaking, and I'm all about history here, Mike Ditka is the only tight end to ever get over 1,000 yards during his rookie campaign, and he also had 12 touchdowns. Gronk had 10 TDs his rookie year, but just 546 yards. Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, and Antonio Gates, none had more than 2 touchdowns and all less than 400 receiving yards. In terms of strategy, you're either a fantasy guy who takes a top tight end early because you draft at the end of the first round, or you're a fantasy guy who will never use an early pick at the position because you know you can get reliable guys late like a Delaney Walker or maybe an Austin Hooper this year. That would be the route I would go. In terms of top performers from last year, Travis Kelce was the leading scorer at tight end, racking up 294 points, which was about 40 points more than George Kittle, even though George Kittle had the most yards by a tight end in NFL history. Those two and Zack Ertz, who had the most catches at 116, are always safe bets because they're going to be around 100 catch players every year. Is it greedy of Travis Kelce to take so many targets away from a young community-oriented player like Tyreek Hill? Yes. Obviously, anything could happen to bring a dip to those guys in terms of their production. But if you must have a great fantasy tight end, I like all three again this year. Let's keep in mind, too, that George Kittle had one of the best tight end seasons ever with Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard throwing him the ball. Not even a full Jimmy G season, whose 5 interceptions on 5 straight throws in training camp shows just how consistent Jimmy G really is. I think Kittle, as good as he is, and as heavily as the 49ers will rely on tight ends, is the most risky play for those top guys, mainly because he's not going up against the Broncos' 2018 defense again. but also the uncertainty about Jimmy Garoppolo as a legit QB and a 49ers offense that may or may not be good. Kelce has Mahomes and Zack Ertz feasts, no matter how many quarterbacks get hurt in Philadelphia. Speaking of injury, my medical warning player is of course Hunter Henry. He has the biggest upside of any tight end on the board because he's the best tight end to never actually play any real NFL football. The same way my father is the best dad on earth even though he walked out on us when I was 2. If Henry's body doesn't betray him, and that's already starting to happen for other players in Los Angeles, Phillip Rivers will get him the ball. And we know Rivers' balls never betrayed him. And even though he has 10 reasons to do so, he has never walked out on his family. And you guys apparently agree with me about Hunter Henry's upside by voting him over Eric Ebron at pollsports.com. I just posted a question there about Kyle Rudolph and Vance McDonald, if you would like to vote. Again, I'm beta testing Poll Sports and would love for you to check it out. This is not a paid ad. Poll Sports is completely free, and the link is below. And all Poll Sports is a fantasy tool designed to help you get instant answers to any of your fantasy questions. You can vote on my polls, create your own, and build credibility points on the site. So check it out and give us your feedback so I can help my friend build out the site. Which leads me to Eric Ebron, a player I would caution on overdrafting. He had more touchdowns in 2018 with 13 than any other tight end, and the Colts only added Devin Funchess at wide receiver to upgrade the receiving group. But they did take Paris Campbell in the second round, who could be a great rookie wide receiver, and also Ebron will be seeing a healthy Jack Doyle return to the lineup. And Indy has Mo Alley-Cox. Never forget Indy has Mo Alley-Cox, who scored 2 touchdowns on just 7 receptions last year, proving Alley-Cox is still where you get the most bang for your buck. Throw in Andrew Luck's mysterious injury, and there's a lot of caution that should be surrounding Eric Ebron. Doesn't mean he won't be good, just caution. The secret to drafting a sleeper tight end, though, is to find a guy who is in his 3rd year with a good quarterback. Last year, that guy was Austin Hooper in Atlanta. He finished with 71 receptions, 660 yards, and 4 touchdowns. A solid late-round pickup who should see even more production this season. Former Falcon Tony Gonzalez solidified my team multiple fantasy seasons. Gonzalez with Matty Ice basically scored 7 to 8 touchdowns every year and was good for about 900 yards. That's where Hooper should land this year if his progression continues as the clear number 1 receiving tight end in Atlanta. A real sleeper though this year might be Mark Andrews. Even with a crowded tight end group in Baltimore, last year he averaged 16 yards per catch and his production did not dip when they switched to Lamar Jackson. That offense might actually put him to sleep, but he's going to be a safety valve for a quarterback that struggles to throw the ball to wide receivers consistently. The tight end the Ravens actually took in the 1st round last year, Hayden Hurst, only scored 35 fantasy points, proving that it really doesn't matter where you get drafted as long as you pick the right quarterback to be best friends with. I've always thought that if you have red hair, you should try to minimize it as much as possible, but ever since Carrot Top debunked that theory, the Gingers have been emboldened, even to the point that they're playing NFL football and starring in Hollywood movies. The scariest thing about them is their ability to metamorph into whoever they want or to teleport with ease. If the NFL allowed teleportation, Andy Dalton would be a 10-time Super Bowl MVP. But even as Gingers are being integrated into public life, they still have to battle their harshest critic, the sun. As you can see here, Hayden Hurst is shielding himself from his arch nemesis, the ultraviolet ray. So if you have him, only start him when he plays indoors. Another sleeper I would look at is Chris Herndon of the New York Jets. Important to note that he's going to be suspended for the first 4 games, which means you can get him off waivers after your draft. Probably. Herndon might be the beneficiary of a breakout season from Sam Darnold, and while that's assuming that Darnold gets better in his 2nd year, I also suggested a tight end that plays with Lamar Jackson, so clearly I don't care that much about who the quarterback is, even though I should. Herndon had the 16th most fantasy points out of any tight end last season, and that was just as a rookie, so I like his upside. Tight ends to stay away from? Just personally, I would not draft Gronk. Not because he retired. Well, maybe that too, but primarily because he now looks like Jonah Hill post weight loss. So a player I am most confused about right now is Jared Cook. We know he went to New Orleans after scoring the 4th most tight end points with the Raiders, but keep in mind that he was the only, and I mean only, target for Derek Carr after Oakland traded away Amari Cooper. Drew Brees has options, and Jared Cook probably won't repeat the production he had last season. Unless, of course, Drew Brees remembers how sweet it was when he treated Jimmy Graham like a whiteout. Just like someone who refuses to do squats, Matthew Stafford has a terrible history developing tight ends. However, Detroit drafted T.J. Hockenson, the other rookie I want to talk about, as a top 10 draft pick. So I'm assuming he will put up great numbers for a rookie tight end. He's projected as the 14th best tight end right now after David Njoku, Vance McDonald, and Austin Hooper. Honestly, I could see him outperforming all of those guys based on the fact that after Kenny Golladay, he could be the best receiving target for Matthew Stafford. Vance McDonald, another interesting tight end who could be a sleeper. Someone has to catch the 168 targets that went to Antonio Brown last season. I already mentioned wide receiver James Washington in a previous episode, but McDonald's receptions could easily jump from 50 to 70 plus this season. He could now be the second best option for Roethlisberger in the passing progression. Since leaving New Orleans, Jimmy Graham has been a fantasy disappointment. Like when your fantasy finally comes true and you get a 3-way with 2 women, but you walk away disappointed because it either ended so fast due to overstimulation, or it's underwhelming because the only 2 girls who agreed to sleep with you at the same time are extremely unattractive. That is literally the only way I can describe Jimmy Graham as a fantasy player over the last few years. Possible upside, though, this year for Graham, as I think the Packers are improved defensively. Graham is in his 2nd year with Aaron Rodgers, and I believe Matt LaFleur will make that offense more productive. Finally, based on projections alone, I think Kyle Rudolph could be a sleeper. CBS has him ranked 19th. I mentioned Jared Cook in New Orleans earlier, and CBS has him projected as the 4th overall tight end. And maybe that is correct, but I believe Kirk Cousins wants to involve Kyle Rudolph more in the passing game, and the Vikings just gave Kyle a bunch of money on a 4-year extension. He could outperform Jared Cook in my eyes, or at least be close, which if 15 tight ends are off the board in your draft, he'll be an absolute steal. Other than that, just make sure you have one diehard Cowboys fan in your fantasy draft so they take Jason Witten way too early and you can make sick Witten burns all year long. And that's the fantasy episode for tight ends. Thanks for watching another episode of That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube's. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, at Brandon Perna. If you want to talk about football, you can do it to me there. And again, make sure you check out pulsesports.com so we can help build up that website to be really, 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 really beneficial to you.